Welcome back to the Shadow Archives, a fan-led talk show all about the world of the Blade of Shadows. I'm Matt from Ohio, and with me today from all around the world are my friends and fellow fans, Tam from Australia, Sam from England, Louise from Denmark, Lisa from Northern Virginia, and Patrick from North Carolina. You guys, this book is so good.
Yes.
This section was so good to read. It was so yummy.
These are my favorite trials.
So, to the listeners, if you will recall, in our last episode, Lazarus and Salvatore learned the truths about both of their mothers and their fathers when they went through the fourth and fifth trials. And Amara even showed them the truth about Severen and his sextension and the Dreadhold. And after learning all of this, Lazarus and Salvatore reach a tentative truce where they're going to agree to rise and work together to destroy Severen in order to save everyone in the Dreadhold. And with that, the archives are officially reopened. Our story picks back up with guards bursting through the door of Amara's healing chamber looking for Lazarus and Salvatore in order to take them to Severen for the final trial. So the boys are dragged before Severen, and his throne room has been completely transformed. The walls are completely draped in black with crimson symbols. There are strings of bones hanging everywhere, and Severen himself awaits on his throne. And in the middle of the space is a rune-scarred circle. And I'd like to kind of begin our conversation with a couple of items of note that I noticed. The first thing I noticed about the kind of the boys being drugged towards Severen is that the perspective is from Salvatore, but it almost feels like there's a lack of perspective. It's like 2 or 3 pages, and then you finally get this quote about how Salvatore is thinking to himself that he should have pitied them, talking about Lazarus and Amara, but as he watches them, he only feels hollow and like he has nothing. And I just feel like I was reading all of this like, oh, he doesn't have any opinions about anything. He's lost everything. He's lost all sense of hope. And I found like that was crazy. And I just wanted to pick up with all of you and how you are feeling about Salvatore at this point in the story.
Well, you could really feel his despair with how she wrote it. So, I mean, it really let me feel what he was going through, at that point. So, again, hands down to Sarah really being descriptive and making it make sense.
I agree.
I see a bunch of head nods, like we're all in agreement.
For sure.
I think I'm probably the one to tip the scales as always when it comes to Salvatore, because at this point I still really feel for him. I'm still like, okay, you can still be good. There's still something. I can't give up this hope. Not even the second time around. I still keep clinging to that hope.
Well, there's a reason.
I'm so biased.
There's a reason
the
he's
one.
the way he is. So
Yeah.
Are you rooting for him, Lou, in this moment?
I'm rooting for him to do better.
To do better.
Yeah. I'm rooting for him to win over his dark sides.
Okay.
Keep rooting.
The next thing that I noticed, and I know I brought this up when we talked about the prologue, but I gotta bring it up again because it won't leave my brain. Is when the boys are brought into the throne room, the Noctyss flower is sitting on a little pedestal table right next to Severen, and I couldn't help but think of it's described as being in a dome of smoky glass.
Like
And
Beauty
within
and the
it, the
Beast?
silver and black flower.
I was gonna say it made
Yes,
me think
like
of Beauty
Beauty and
and
the
the Beast.
Beast.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought of. Even in the chapter that I got, when they were talking about, well, how do we get Severin? Oh, well, it's in the flower that's right next to him in the glass case. I was like, oh, it's Beauty and the Beast.
Do we think that's do you guys think that's purposeful? And if so, why? What does it mean to you?
I kind of broke up. What was that?
So this is like a lot like Beauty and the Beast. And do you think that was purposeful by Sarah? And if so, what does it mean to you guys? Like, how do you interpret this Beauty and the Beast connection?
Well, I think it has a central. It's really a focus because it is the thing that can disable Severin. I mean, it is the main thing, the only thing that can disable him. So it's a major focus.
I could see
Very
that because
important.
in Beauty and the Beast, that's what the Beast was all centered on. It had to do it before the last petal fell and stuff like that. So I can see it being regarded in such high regard that it had to have its own case. But I also understand that the case has to be enclosed because, in my chapter, not to skip ahead, but they said if they breathe it, they're weakened.
That's
if
right.
they drink it, whatever. So if they even come close to it, that has to be enclosed. But because he knows that that's the only thing that can hurt him, he wants to keep it close.
That's right.
So
it's like keep your friends close and your enemies closer. This is his one biggest enemy.
Yeah.
Do you think that there is a beauty and a beast inside of the Blade of Shadows series in connection with this flower? And if so, who do you think they are?
Oh. We'll have to ponder that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I reckon you could class Amara as a beauty because she does everything in her power to try and fix the people. She's always seen the better side of Salvatore. She's always seen the good in him. Not every person is pure evil. There's got to be some good in them. But she sees it in everybody, because wasn't it Amara's daughter later on that Marcellus was married to, or trying to get married to, and they had a kid? So, she sees it in Marcellus, she sees it in Salvatore, everybody that we would deem as the beast in the books. I think I would class Amara as a beauty. She's always trying to look for the best.
Okay.
So who would be the beast?
I personally think that anybody with shadows inside them is the beast. Like I think Elizabeth and Hassan, Pasha Hassan are the beast. Amir. I think that Zara and Balthazar are the beauty and the beast. I think there's a lot of them. I think it's a nice little beautiful like symbology duality thing that Sarah has throughout.
Wouldn't that just make the shadows the beast then?
I was getting ready to say that, Sam.
Yes.
Wouldn't that
Well,
just mean
actually,
that the
I
shadows
reached
are the
out to
beast?
I reached
for
out to Sarah
purposes.
for comment on the shadows, and what I've learned is we cannot apparently think of the shadows as a single entity. That these shadows are all different depending upon who they interact with. Like the shadows are unique. So
Severin's shadows are
I don't
different
know.
from, yeah.
But that is a good point. Anyways, before the final trial starts, Severen makes one more mention of something that got my noodle going. He says that you will learn that death is a luxury denied to those chosen by shadows. And so I want to ask you all the question. And spoiler alert, I reached out to Sarah for comment on this one, and she gave me a little something to say. But I want to know y'all's opinion first. Can Shadow Lords be killed?
I feel like it's more they can be defeated in a way. Because, you know, we've seen that they get like locked in like the tomes and things like that. Like how like Salvatore's mum is still very on the edge of if she's dead or alive. It's things like, I'm not going to jump too much ahead, but something in the end shows that a certain other Shadow Lord was kind of away for like ages and stuff like that and locked away for a while. So I feel like there has to be a way to destroy them in the end of the day, because I feel like it's kind of like the whole idea of like, I'm trying to think of the words, like how like that if there's a will there's a way, but also it's like that like Mother Nature's got to balance it out some way or another. So it's kind of like theoretically like vampires sort of thing. They're eternal beings, but they have a way to be killed because everything needs to kind of have a way. So I feel like there's some way, but I feel like it's kind of the whole idea of it's easier to be defeated. If that makes sense.
I wonder if the defeat is not death, but like potentially rehumanizing them. So losing their powers of being the Shadow Lord and being put back into like a normal sort of almost civilian human society. So you then have to just be. You can't control anything. You have no control over anything. You have no power over anybody. I think that would be what I would class as defeated, because you know death's not like the final defeat. There's multiple ways. If you've got somebody who's eternal, the one way to defeat them would be to rehumanize them and make them mortal, I think.
Well, Sarah told me that short answer, yes, and that someday she will be writing Severen and Mariana's story. And in that story, we will learn more about how and if a Shadow Lord can be killed. And we'll learn more about the origin of the Noctyss flower. And I was like, well, that's
But
frustratingly
at least it's going to happen.
okay.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Severen begins the final trial. He says, let us begin the final trial. He says that you will both enter the pit of shadows, and there you will face the shadows themselves. If you survive, you will rise reborn as Shadow Lords. But if you fail, you never emerge. The shadows will devour you alive, piece by piece, savoring your screams. So the two boys enter the pit of shadows at the same time, but we read Salvatore's final trial first.
So we hear a lot about what's happening with noises and a lot of stands, and it's not very beautiful. It's not very nice. I won't go into too much details about that. Let's just say I'm very happy I'm not experiencing it. I'm very happy it's not a movie. Let's just put it like that. But Salvatore, he tells us that there's this mirror, and he sees himself wearing a stretch grin he's never worn, and his teeth are black and glistening. So I feel like, okay, now we're just reading a horror movie. And at the same time, then Lazarus's throat is just cut from ear to ear. So this is very cozy, you guys. But then at some point they get split up, and then we just have Salvatore because we get yeah. And this is also very painful. Of course it is. Nothing is ever easy here. And this is the part I love most about all of the books, I think, because now we get to hear these whispers saying a lot of stuff, and I think it's just very perfect that they get to tell us, yeah, these kind of things, because I couldn't see how else we would get to know this stuff. So now it's actually mostly just all the stuff that Salvatore learns about Mariana, we just spoke about. He learns more about she's being trapped in a tome, and he wants to know how to get her out and where she is. And he gets to know that his father was actually not pure bad. It was actually Severen who was controlling him with his whispers. And it was the same for Julian. He didn't just suddenly die. There was someone helping him get there. And yeah, and then he gets to know more about the prison, that it's actually not even a prison, it's an execution ground, and it's actually Severen's entire feast. They're brought there as a feast for him. And that's also why the trials was not, they're clearly not supposed to survive them. They're just there for the feeding. Okay, I think that was most. Yeah, then regarding what we just spoke about, actually, I wrote down that it was quite exciting that they told him shadows are reborn and cannot be slayed. And then after this, he was told, shadows never die. They only change and stay within one forever. I thought this was pretty interesting. But we pretty much just spoke about that, actually. And then Salvatore asked, "But how do I escape from this?" And he gets this answer. You must prove that you are not merely broken, but you can wield the brokenness as a weapon. I thought this sentence was so beautifully written out, but we can just get back to that in a sec. And then also this one, every ascension is different. Every aspirant is judged alone. Each must destroy the one thing that settles them to being human. That is the price. That is the proof. For you, Salvatore, it is love. And this is where we get to know what price Salvatore has to pay to become a Shadow Lord. And then we get this scene where we have to see what Salvatore sees, what love is for him, and we meet it's Amara, of course, Helena, his father, and just most of all, it's Lazarus. And they all tell him, "We love you, we're proud of you." They tell him all the stuff he wants to hear. And this is also one of my favorite parts, but because this is like seeing what he could have been if this was a good story and he got to be the good guy. And I thought it was really beautiful. And then I think we actually have this one thing to talk about because now it's almost wrapped up. And the whispers warn him, "You may walk your eternity barren." And I thought this was quite exciting because we get to know more about this later on when Severen curses them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then of course Salvatore, he makes his decision. Does he want to sacrifice everything? And the answer is yes. So he rips out his own heart, not on himself, but I don't know if it's a shadow version of himself or whatever, but it's this other one. So he just rips out the heart and crushes it. So now he's just adding to his own heartbreak, quite literally. Yeah. Yeah, and then I think what I just wanted to talk about is, do you guys understand why Salvatore does this? And I mean, like, do you think his character is it written in a way where you feel like this is the only way for him, or do you feel like, okay, he could have done something else? Of course, we all know he was going to choose to become a Shadow Lord because otherwise no book. But
Mm-hmm.
do you get me?
Yeah, I think one of his reasons for wanting to be a Shadow Lord so much is he wants to free his mother, who is a shadow. What is she called? A shadow, mistress of shadows,
Mistress of
and
Shadows.
she's
Mistress of Shadows, yeah.
trapped in her tome by Severen. And one of Salvatore's greatest goals is to free her from that tome, because all he's ever wanted was his mother's love. And he was convinced that that was the thing that really messed up his life, is her death, or what he thought was her death. But now there's a way to get her back, and he wants that. So, and he wants to defeat Severen too. He wants to overtake him. And anybody else have an idea?
I think it's the I think it's the easiest option for him. That the easiest thing for him to give up is because he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the love. He doesn't have, everything that he was envisioning in the trial. It's almost what he wished he would get, but I'm pretty sure he knows from his whole life that he could easily just give it up, and it wouldn't be anything to him. Like that that's going to be the easiest way for him to become Shadow Lord. It's like, well, I'm never
That's
going
a
to get
really
it, so
good
what's the point in
point. I
trying?
mean, can't miss what you never had. So
Yeah, I mean, like,
No,
because obviously, like, he's tried to get with Amara. He's tried to get his dad's love. He'd never know his mum's love. He's never had anything to feed that. So for him, it was like, yeah, okay, fine, take it. I never got it anyway, so don't worry about it.
I think there's a
and right,
modicum of desire for revenge or vengeance in there. It's not written explicitly in the trial. Actually, I read it like twice, and I don't think that there's any specific reason why Salvatore does what he does. Whereas when you read Lazarus is like, oh, well, here's my rationale. But then based upon all of Salvatore's actions later, I think there's got to be something to do with the desire for revenge. I want to leave this pit so I can get my vengeance.
I can see that.
okay, and can we then also now talk about that quote with, you must prove that you are not merely broken, but you can wield that brokenness as a weapon. I was really wondering what you guys thought about this. How is he supposed to wield his brokenness as a weapon? What did you guys get out of this?
I also highlighted this, and I had the same question for both dudes. And I don't have an answer. I thought about it. I highlighted it. I wrote the same question down, and I couldn't come up with an
Well, I
answer. So
think
I'm really
wielding
curious
your
what anybody else thinks.
Oh, go ahead.
I thought it was. Thank you. I actually thought that for Salvatore, it was like he's so broken that there's nothing left to fix it, because he has no chance at getting on good foot with Lazarus again. So it's like he can just take all this brokenness and turn it into, well, maybe he'll search for revenge, but it will be turned into uh, him as a Shadow Lord, and it will be a part of the Shadow Lord he becomes. So he's like, yeah, this broken, broody, dark, very angry Shadow Lord. It was
I
the
also
closest
think
I could get to an answer.
I think that if you think his only stable relationship in the whole thing was with Lazarus, as soon as that was severed, like he literally has nothing left. So why would he be worried about, brandishing this him being broken? Because it's not going to hurt him, but he can use it to his advantage. He can, you know, he can draw people in by making them feel sorry for him, and then just do whatever he needs to do to climb the next run on the ladder.
Do you think do you think Salvatore's brokenness, so his being broken is his inability to love? Do you think then the weapon that he wields is really just he wields hate
Well, I think any
and
Shadow
anger?
Lord, the whole point is you have to break yourself down to the very bottom of the barrel in order to rise from the ashes and become a Shadow Lord. You have to break everything, and he definitely is rock bottom, and he can take that and be a
S-
yeah.
Speaking of that, Lisa, um, why do you guys think the shadows want the individual to be completely broken and at rock bottom before they accept him? Wouldn't you think that the shadows would want evil and maleficent, yes, but a strong host as opposed to completely broken and fragmented?
No,
Because
What's
there's
the benefit of being broken?
no way to
because
go
then
but
you're
Complete
at
up.
their
obedience.
will.
You take that and you wield it
Yeah.
and you become strong. Once you've hit rock bottom, you've got to be strong. You've got no choice. No more excuses.
Mm.
Yeah, I kind of equate it as to, some of the things that they do in the Marine Corps, is they kind of strip your entire personality out so you become a Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. You have that mindset and it stays with you even today. And I've been out almost 20 years, you know. Same type of thing here is they strip everything away to where you are nothing but a Shadow Lord. And you're going to get all your power from the shadows. And you accept that because, like Lisa was saying, you're there's only one way up, and the only way up is through the shadows. So I can definitely see where that's why they would want. I almost said I think I originally said complete obedience to the shadows, but I mean I guess you could
You're
kind of still say
completely
it that way.
reborn into
But
something brand new.
Hmm.
I agree with you, Patrick.
Tam, you've been awfully quiet. Do you want to?
Yeah, no, I've been like, for some reason, the early wake ups hit me a lot today. So, like, I'm listening, I promise. What is it? My things are like, I mean, that's like, mine's kind of similar to the whole thing of, yeah, I feel like it kind of shows the shadow's power a lot. Not necessarily that they fully want to control whoever kind of gets the shadows, but it shows that they are a lot more of a power themselves, because not only like, because a shadow lord wouldn't be a shadow lord without the shadows, and like I feel like at the end of the day the shadows do kind of have obviously their little kind of mind of their own. They kind of pick and choose certain little things, like we find out a little bit later on that they have needs and things like that. And so I find it quite like it kind of is a way to show their bit of power that they have at the end of the day, because they kind of lose a little bit when the Shadow Lord officially is able to control them. So they're kind of showing it all now, and like, if that kind of makes sense, I guess, yeah.
I mean, sort of like dominance?
Yeah, because it's they've got to do something to kind of like prove that the person is worthy in a way. Kind of like, the whole sword in the stone sort of thing. You've got to kind of do something to prove that you're worthy of this sort of power. And I feel like the shadows are very aware of that.
In order
in a
for the
way.
shadows, oh, go ahead.
That's interesting. I think this entire time I thought of the relationship between shadows and Shadow Lord as almost like a parasite and host type of relationship. But now I'm kind of reframing it in my head from what you said, Tam, as almost like an abusive relationship between like boyfriend, girlfriend, or something along those lines.
Mm. Mm.
While Salvatore was busy with his final trial, so was Lazarus. Sam, would you like to talk about Lazarus's final trial in chapter 21?
Yeah. So Lazarus is dragged into a living nightmare pit after being separated from Salvatore. The shadows torment him with brutal truths about his father, who was Severen, revealing that Lazarus was never meant to become an heir and he was just raised to become a sacrifice. They forced him to confront the suffering of his mother and the abuse and shame that she received, and that he received the shame of growing up being a horse son. And then the shadows offer Lazarus a path to Ascension, but the cost is that he must destroy a part of himself that is still innocent, which is like his humanity, his compassion, and they make it in the shape of Lazarus as a small boy. And then the shadows start to insist that goodness is weakness and that it must die if Lazarus wants to gain the power to save Amara and defeat Severen. But then the pit also has the ability to tempt him with the illusion of the life that he has always wanted, with a loving mother, some siblings, a safe space, and everybody's at peace. And keeps trying to draw him in by saying, if you don't ascend, you can stay here forever, feel this the whole time, it's never going to change. But Lazarus chooses to ascend, obviously, because he's tried to do these Shadow Lord trials to save everybody. Which in turn means that he has to kill the child version of himself. Which I found quite hard to read because he was very, very torn up about the whole thing and having to apologize to a child and having to to do it, to put his hands around this child's throat and just squeeze, because that's the only way that he could get out of where he was in, and he had so much remorse for what he was doing. And then the shadows take hold of him and he comes out the other side as a Shadow Lord. So I had a couple of questions. Do you think killing the boy version of himself was a sacrifice or a self-destruction? And is becoming the Shadow Lord corruption or completion on their part?
I definitely think it was a sacrifice, not a self-destruction. I think killing his younger self, him as a boy, his innocence, his goodness, was a sacrifice. He had to let go of that in order to rise as a Shadow Lord.
I actually think it was kind of both.
I think it's both. I think if
I agree.
you're
Mm.
if you're dealt with a 50-50, like, you're gonna have to do this to get this, or stay here and miss that. I think you have to give a little bit of yourself to it, but you also lose a bit of yourself. Like, there's a choice, you know. If you give something, you're choosing to do it, but if you have no choice, then it's taken from you. If that makes any sense.
I think it was both insofar as the sacrifice was a part of himself, and therefore it had to be some type of self-mutilation or self-destruction in order to make the sacrifice. And I think that was more heartbreaking to read than just like Salvatore is already like cold and callous and broken with the whole love thing his entire life. But like Lazarus was always hopeful, and to just give up any type of optimism ever again, and to just like kill off your entire memory of it in essence, it was just it broke something in my brain reading it.
I found it really hard to read because you've got this person who is literally trying to think of any other option other than, you know, taking the innocence out of himself, taking the curiosity and everything else out of himself. Whereas Salvatore just had nothing. He was just like, "Yep, cool, I'll do it." Like, it was. There's very much a comparison between the two of them, that they are. One is fight and one is flight, or one is fight and one is survive. You know what I mean? Like, one's trying to play the game and the other one's trying to just survive.
Mhm.
So I have a question on this, because this is, I get, like everybody else, it was a hard thing to think about and to read. But do you think the amount of remorse and the amount of thinking and the amount of justification that Lazarus made allowed him to retain a very slight portion of the pre-Shadow
Yes.
Lord
Definitely.
in himself?
As in, like, it's giving
Because
him humanity.
obviously,
Yes.
because he for some reason, Lazarus still has a bit of humanity. He still loves Amara, you know, and I think
Well,
it was so strong, even as strong as the Shadow Lord trials were, he was still able to retain
That's why I was saying
just
I
that
didn't
little
think it was
bit.
destructive.
I know the
my
shadows mentioned that the only thing they could not kill would be true
love.
hope.
True love.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry,
True
true
love.
love.
True love.
I had
love.
two
Yeah.
more questions
True
that
love,
would have.
true love, same thing.
I had two more questions that would have backed off of what Patrick's just said, which is, do you think Amara is Lazarus's anchor to humanity because he's doing it all for her? So she is the one thing that is tethering him to
I'm gonna cue Tam
humanity.
on this one.
100%. 100%. No, because like, and I'll even talk about in my chapter how it's very much for him, like, kind of like a fight in a way. It's like again, I'll talk about it more in my chapter when I properly get into it, but it's very much like he's got kind of like a fight or flight with her, where it's like again, I'm trying not to spoil my thoughts, but like everything kind of makes sense with it, where it's like, he's either gonna fight to make sure like she kind of understands, to make sure it's like something that's being pretty much worked towards, or it's he needs to back up a little bit to not scare her, to not kind of like let the shadows overrun him. So it's a very big thing of like genuine, like, and even like throughout the rest of the trials and stuff like that, we've seen how she's kind of been the main focus in his brain of like, okay, where's Amara? Okay, she's over here, she's safe right now, that's all I need to know. Okay, now she's unsafe again, how do we get her out of this situation? It's like this man is just in love with his girl, and it is the center focus for him. But then again, it's like, at the end of the day, Salvatore has nothing to hold on to. Salvatore's lost his brother. Salvatore's lost his family. Salvatore, he doesn't know where his mum is. He's going through all this. Like, Lazarus, the main thing that he's got left is Amara, is the thing. Because he's also lost his mum. His father, he just found out who his father was, and I think he'd rather keep those daddy issues than find out again, you know what I mean? So it's very like, yeah, Amara is kind of the only thing that's holding him together because there's nothing else to hold anyone else to. Like, again, Salvatore has no one. At least Lazarus has something, if that makes sense.
It
So
makes very much sense.
TLDR, yes.
TLDR, yeah. If you need me to summarize it for you guys, I can do dot points now.
And then the last question I had was, why do you think the shadows allow true love to survive? Because there was mention of it. Let me find it. There was mention of it saying that only true love. I can't remember what it is, but it's something about only true love.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it's the whole thing of, like,
they
it's the
say-
whole balance thing that I was kind of talking about. Well, to answer the question, but yeah.
It's the romance part of this book.
This
Aww.
I think it's the fairy tale part of the entire series. I think that Sara, the author, loves classic fairy tales, and in pretty much every classic fairy tale, true love is the thing that can break every curse. It is
do you
the
think it's
True
like
love
cure
this is the way
to- Yeah.
like true
And
love's
so
kiss
good
will
can
break.
never, I'm sorry, evil can never defeat true love in any of the fairy tales, and thus the shadows cannot defeat true love in this world. I think it's just as simple as it's a trope. It's a
It was actually in Salvatore's chapter we got to know only true love could ever pierce the emptiness.
Lazarus gives up hope as the thing that makes him, hope and innocence is the thing that makes him human, and Salvatore gives up the possibility of love as the thing that makes him human. So before we transition to what happens afterwards, I'd like to go around the horn and simply have everybody answer the question of, if you were in the final trial, what would the shadows demand for you to give up in order to ascend as a Shadow Lord? Or, sorry, Mistress of Shadows. Although Sara did tell me that the ascension process for Mistress of Shadows is different, but because we don't know what it is, we're all just going to pretend that it's all the same, like we just read with Lazarus and Salvatore.
For me, it would be something like compassion or helpfulness, because my number one core feeling for others is to be helpful or compassionate. I just want to help someone, so that would be mine definitely. It would be the worst part not to be able to help someone again, or never feel the need to. I would absolutely hate it.
I think for me, if they wanted to hit me where it hurts and end my humanity, they would make me give up my children.
This might be too personal of a question, but what do your children mean to you? Like, not individually, but like as a overarching concept.
No, that's not too personal. Well, my daughter's 30, my son is 22, and they are just my husband, it's a different kind of love. It's all the same. It all has the same weight to it, but my children are just so, no matter how old they get or how big they get, they're always to me I have a relationship with them as an adult, but they will always be my babies, no matter what. Even though I relate to them as an adult now, we have a different relationship, that my heart would be completely obliterated if I had to give them up, and that would be the end of my humanity.
Mine would be empathy. I'm a really empathetic person. Um, I think that if I can't feel for people, then it's not me. There's no point in me being me. But also overthinking. I think that I don't think I'd survive constantly like not being able to question other people or their like reasons for why they're doing stuff because I overthink a lot. Like somebody could say, "Oh, we need to talk," and I'm like, "Wait, what? Why? Why? What did we do? What did I do? What have I done?" Um, yeah, I don't think I'd survive very long.
I think for me, mine would be a little bit very similar to Lazarus. The loss of the good in everyone, the innocence of a child always thinking that people are good people. Um, because there are a lot of good people out there. Um, and just knowing that I had no opportunity to think that somebody was even good. I think that would be the biggest thing that I would have the hardest. It would be the hardest thing for me to give up is that hope that humanity is still humanity, and unfortunately not kind of what it is today.
Was it mine? I feel like would be like something like passion or creativity, because I feel like
Mm.
a lot of that is kind of what fuels like my humanity, my kindness, all that sort of stuff, is being a very creative and like passionate person. Like I do a lot of creative things. I work on like a lot of stuff like social media, acting, all that sort of stuff. I feel like they'd be able to tamp me down if they got rid of my passion for so many things,
Mm.
because that's is what kind of drives me as a person in a way, like having always that sort of stuff to work towards. So they kill me a bit in that way.
How about you, Matt?
I think so. I am the youngest in my family, and I have big little brother energy, as my wife likes to say. The way
That's
that
not a compliment. I'm just kidding.
it is not a compliment. I know that. The way that I process the world, the way that I cope with the world, and the way that I interact and make friends with everybody is through humor and comedy, and that is the thing that makes me human, I think. So I think the shadows would demand me to give up humor.
Mm,
Yeah, can see that.
And I think one of
yeah.
the things I love about our group is how all of our answers for things are always different. I am blown away by that every single time. With both of the final trials now complete, the real ascension can occur. So
So we pick up, and they are now done. They're getting ready to ascend, and Sara does a great job again of making the Dreadhold and everything in the Dreadhold personal, or a character of its own right. Um, just how she says it, the 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 shadows are snakes, and they move, and the walls split open, and they bleed black fire, and the pit convulsed. So her ability to make the Dreadhold human, or another part of the character, is another thing. One of the things that kind of caught me was the fact that it was what we just kind of talked about, was what would we have to give up. And I have it kind of highlighted here. It wasn't pain, but it was the erasure, that they were completely whoever they were was completely erased from their being. That's something that really kind of stuck out to me because until you asked that question, Matt, what would we have to give up? That would basically be erasing who we are today. So I that was a pretty strong statement for me. But Salvatore and Lazarus, they kind of go into the fact that, they're no longer human. Sarah does a great job of explaining how they are turning, how the shadows are becoming part of themselves with all the black ink on their arms and the shadows moving underneath their skin, which we pick up throughout all the other books. But the part where the shadows start talking, and I'm trying to remember the name of the movie because we talk about how we talked earlier about how the shadows aren't one voice; it's many voices. And I'm trying to remember the name of the movie, and I want to say it's Venom. We are Venom, but he said it like 16 different voices at the exact same time. That's in my mind. That's exactly what I hear when the shadows are talking to both Lazarus and Salvatore. The other thing that kind of stuck out to me, and I'm going to date myself with a cheesy old movie here, but when I think of the movie Ghost and those at the very end with the shadows that kind of come out of the people, but yet then they come back in to take the people, right there at the very end. It still kind of creeps me out because of the cheesy cinematography. But when I was reading this again, it was just like, man, that's exactly what it is. Their shadows came out, they kind of looked at them, and then they went right back into them. And it was just like, oh, that's straight up Ghost right there. Just keep me away from windows. But yeah, we find out here that every request that they're going to have to make as a Shadow Lord requires a payment of some kind. That's where we get into the feeding part. Once they are fed, then they get to actually do whatever it is that they want to do. Some power requires a little, some demand everything. Fear, agony, desire, and ecstasy, which is basically the 4 things that we have learned throughout, where the shadows and the darkness feed off of something. And that's kind of where I got that itself. But then Lazarus comes out, the shadows are talking to him, and it's just like, hey, so how do we defeat Severen? And then that's where they're like, hey, guess what? You can't do it. Sorry. And obviously Lazarus kind of, kind of goes into a fit with that because it's like, I did this whole thing just because I wanted to defeat Severen. Now what? You got to be kidding me. I went through all this for what? But it's so funny because there's so much that the shadows tell Severen and Lazarus in this chapter. The fact that he feared their bloodlines and the union should never have existed. So one of the questions I had just basically off of this part, do you think that Severen unknowingly or unwantingly put them two together and was so blinded by his plan to destroy them that he didn't realize that they could actually be the one to defeat him?
I think they were always his plan from the beginning since they were born, that he was going to. But I think he was, what do you call it, egotistical, I think he never, ever imagined that anybody could defeat him or challenge him. So I think he really thought he was going to bring them in, have them rise as Shadow Lords and immediately defeat them and put them in tomes. I don't think he ever thought it was going to go the other way.
I think I'm very much reminded of have you all seen the movie A Beautiful Mind?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very
No.
much okay. You should.
That's
There's
amazing.
it is it's a movie that follows the
write it down.
story of a genius mathematician named John Nash. but the important thing that I was just going to reference is that when he gets into college, Princeton, he's playing chess in the park with his like number one rival. Anyways, he loses and he doesn't understand how. Oh, they're not playing chess; they're playing Go, the game Go. Anyway, whatever. He doesn't understand why he loses, and his rival says a specific sentence that sticks with me. It's called "the hubris of the defeated," and I think Severen has hubris of the defeated here. He is overconfident to the point of not being able to see the possibility of himself losing or even understanding how he did so.
I mean,
that?
how long he's been number one.
Sam, what would you think?
Go ahead.
But I wonder if it's the shadows though, you know, and I will always be on the shadows thing, but the reason I say that is because one, why do the shadows partly tell them how to get rid of Severen? Because it's like, well, he can't be killed, but you can do this. Two, like they say in it that the shadows of seeing the future and seeing that your bloodlines create blah 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 blah, and Severen, you know, your bloodlines ascend, two of your bloodlines ascend and make a new world. So do the shadows feed into Severen, put these two together because they'll do this and da 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 da, and then he's thinking, well, I'll kill him because that's what I do, and then with them ascending has now absolutely foiled his plan, but it has worked out in the shadows' favor, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah,
they're
totally.
playing, the shadows are playing Severen, being like, oh, you got to get these two guys together, and you know they're best friends, but you can crush them, and it'll be fine, and they won't make it, and then they do, and it's completely foiled his plan.
Exactly.
So almost like the shadows were playing Severen at this point.
Yeah. I think in my opinion, it feels like the shadows are gone. Now we're fed up of you, mate. We're gonna like try and scoot you out and make this new world.
I don't know if the shadows have an agenda other than wanting to be fed.
Well, fed by two is better than fed by
Yeah.
one, maybe.
Because like Severin's shadows and Lazarus's shadows and Salvatore's shadows are all different autonomous entities. And so I think like the shadows, no matter where they are and who they are, I think all they want is food. And if Lazarus and Salvatore want to know how to defeat Severen, that requires a huge amount of payment, and the shadows are gluttons. I think they're such neutral evil that they don't have a plan other than how do they get what they want. And I think they just want food, as it were.
Lazarus and Amara did feed them. Remember?
Oh yeah.
They will never be hungry.
No, they'll never be hungry with those two.
Okay. So good thoughts on that particular question. So anyway, so the shadows kind of share that the reason another reason why Severen put them together for this Shadow Lord trials was because he just fed off of them, the brokenness, the hate, the discord between the two of them. And I have my notes here. You know, he believed that his reign was eternal. And I got the ultimate moment, like, oh crap, they just both ascended. You know, that did like I can't remember who it was that said that. Well, that didn't work out like I planned it. And the trimmer crawled through the walls low and deep. It's almost like even the Dreadhold figured out, uh-oh, something's about to change. So I
There was
thought
an
that
oh
was
shit moment.
Yeah, exactly. A definite oh shit moment. And the fact that the shadows themselves saying, like you said, Matt, they see into the future. Your bond carries power the shadows have not seen since the beginning of time. Since the beginning, but a certain lord and a certain mistress born of your bloodlines, which I'll come back to a question on that. And together they will wield power that no shadow lord has ever held. So it's almost like you have these two. You had to have these two to go into the future to actually have what's getting ready to happen, which I figure we'll find out in Solaris, or a spinoff. Who knows where we're going to find off with that with Sarah. But again, they rose. The balance they tried to bury has begun to woke again, because that's what kind of went back to my one question. Like, do you think he unknowingly created this defeat? But then, then Lazarus, they go through and they just keep saying, this is how you do it. You take the Noctyss flower. You can't do it this way. You can't do it that way. The shadows are giving them all this information on how to trap Severen, to put him in his tomes, and because that's where all the other shadow lords are, because that's what Shatterin thought he was going to be the only one that was around. And it was really interesting because Sarah tells us, well, this is what happens to a shadow lord with the Noctyss flower. Inhaling it at weekends, touching it strips, and drinking it annihilates. So it's in this book where in the before books, when Amir was hit with the Noctyss flower, which he didn't know it was the Noctyss flower at the time. It was all inhalation, where she threw it, and it was out there. It was just kind of interesting that now it's like, oh, so this exactly what happens with the Noctyss flower when it actually gets to the Shadow Lord. But I had actually something here too, and I can't remember where I found it, because I actually sent it to Sarah, like, this needs to be a new sticker for your grab bag. But it says, death finds no purchase on what is made of shadows. Yes. And I thought that was a pretty sound, pretty strong statement. But basically at the end of the chapter, they basically say, all right, well, if that's what we got to do, then the darkness has remade us, shadow lords, cursed, banded, and bound forever, and ready to exact revenge. So it's time to go. So my one question that I want to go back to, it talks about the certain lord and certain mistress born of different of your bloodlines. Who do you think that those are? Who would the mistress be?
Well, the first thing I think of is Alina.
Same, honestly.
So who the Lord would be?
The Lord? I don't know who's as bad. Alina's in a class all by herself. I don't know. I don't know about the Lord.
It's hard because we know their parents, but we don't know anyone further of a lot of characters.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of depth.
But isn't Olivia Amara's granddaughter by default? Well, not by default. She's the daughter of Jack, and Jack is the son of Amara. So I would question whether it's going to be Olivia, but I also have a feeling it would be Jack as well. Like I said, the dark horse. I reckon he's coming around.
Okay,
I can't imagine
it was Jack,
Olivia.
that would be sick.
She's awesome.
But it doesn't say that
could be her.
Because the phrasing, there was a phrase, and it said.
It says a certain lord. It does not say a shadow lord.
Yeah, it just says a certain lord.
Mistress, a certain lord and a certain mistress. No mention of shadows.
Well, it does say that they will rise and face Ascension, which kind of implies.
It could be a new kind. It's just another kind of Ascension.
But
be made a new one.
But if they're saying that there was a bit about that they're gonna make, I'm trying to find the word, the phrasing, but it's that the bloodline's gonna create a new world. So
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be a dark one. Because
Okay,
if
so with
if their
Lazarus,
whole
oh, go ahead.
if their whole journey is about trying to find the two blades, the dark blade and the, was it the moon and the sun dagger, to try
Moon and
and
the sun, yeah.
put them together to base, is it not like to try and eradicate the shadow, the bad, the big bad that follows every time born when they're born is obviously created?
Mm.
Isn't the whole point of getting the daggers
Okay,
trying to get rid of the big bad? And if she's the one that's trying to push for it, I think it's Olivia. I think the mistress is Olivia. I don't know about
well,
the Lord,
oh,
because I would have said what's his name, Roman, but I don't think he's of the same bloodline, or I don't know where his bloodline is.
Mm.
But I think Olivia's involved.
okay, if Lazarus can become a Shadow Lord and he was a good person, then I guess I can totally say Olivia could, because she's a good person. So it just depends on the circumstances. But yeah, sure, it could be Olivia.
Well, that's just kind of interesting. I wasn't sure. I know I've had some conversations and I've been asking, her as well, and I just kind of wanted to see what y'all thought. Um, More to that, I'm going to pull a Sarah here, and you'll have to wait till we read it. So,
Yeah.
because it is something that I guessed, and I got the like what Matt says, the never confirm nor deny. Just the pure silence, which
Which kind of means you're on
is
the
enough of an
path. To,
which means I'm on the
Yeah.
path anyway. So yeah, so that was just something that I just kind of wanted to see where because we're all fans, we all know all the characters. Matt, I was actually able to share my screen with all of the flow charts that I'm working on. So everybody was like, "Oh, wow." So still working on all those because it is
There will come a day, my friend, where we will all gather and the entire hour that we are together will be about your flowcharts. That's all we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely.
After Lazarus and Salvatore ascend, they want to, of course, challenge Severen, just like Patrick said. But that requires some preparation based upon the instructions that the Shadows outlined.
So yeah, pretty much they've got their little power trip now, I call it, pretty much, when they're like, "Ooh, this is exciting, this is fun." They've kind of got their little, like, they're like kind of, I guess, understanding their powers and stuff now. And so they kind of go into, I'm pretty sure it's the dungeony part of the Dreadhold, where Amara's like shown them a little bit of, and they're toddling down there. And guess who they stumble upon? The beautiful woman herself, Amara. But she's shackled up, all that stuff. She kind of explains to them eventually how Severin finally caught her, and he hasn't really done much. He's just kind of tortured her a little bit, here and there. But he hasn't really done overly that much to her. I'm pretty sure his idea was probably more like leverage than anything else. Because he knew if he hurt her properly that she wouldn't be useful to him, I guess. So that sort of thing. The biggest thing here is that she immediately sees Lazarus's switch. She can see, she senses it. She literally says, "Lazarus, what happened to you?" She's immediately clocked on that he's different. And in a way, she literally doesn't even recognize him in a way, in obviously the metaphorical sense. Something
Soul
that
to
I found
soul.
interesting. No, yeah. And something that I found interesting was that she was all shackled up, chained up, but there's literally a part where it still says that she recoiled away from him. Oh, my AirPods just died. One of them died. This is fabulous. We're gonna keep going. Um, but So she literally coiled away from him despite everything. And so they eventually do kind of help her kind of I think I wrote the worst notes I've ever written in my entire life, so also bear with me. Like, I'm realizing this is so unorganized, and I don't know how I wrote this when I did this, but it will continue on. Somehow it gets to the fact that it's revealed that Amara's father was actually a Shadow Lord destroyed by Severen, which is a very big thing, because then she kind of does talk about how she saw the changes in her father. She saw what the shadows can do to him. So it was even less of a like, oh, I don't want you to become a Shadow Lord. It was like, oh, I've seen what it's done to people, which is again another big reveal, because I feel like we don't really know much about Amara's backstory until then either. I feel like we know everything about the boys' stuff, but like we don't really know anything about Amara. So it's nice to kind of see, like, now we've got a bit more of like something to work on, I guess, with her. And so good old this all kind of comes to play, and they discovered their powers a lot more. How there is a part where when they break Amara free, the metal shackles are crumbling, like in Lazarus's hands, pretty much, which shows that bro has changed, because shockingly he couldn't do that before. But it shows that kind of he's definitely changed as a person, changed physically, kind of, yeah, become this powerful being. Another thing is that now love has slowly become hunger. They have, this is the funniest note I wrote. Salvatore is a cock. This was the funniest thing I
Yeah.
wrote.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there is an entire, like, hot sec where Lazarus and Amara are just going ham at each other's lips. And when I was reading that, I just, like, the entire time I'm just like, and Salvatore's just there.
Mhm.
He's not left the room. He's still in the room. So I literally wrote that he's a cock, because this
Awkward.
poor guy,
They should have pulled up a chair
poor
for him.
guy, that's what I'm saying. Like, surely there would have been a cock chair in that room. We know Severen at this point. But I'm like, but just he was just there the entire time. They were smacking at each other's lips. And so, but it is the whole idea that love started becoming hunger, because it started kind of talking about, I guess, here we like literally the words, the shadows festered, ecstatic, urging me deeper, take more. They were telling him to kind of take more, because they were feeding off of this love, feeding off of this, like, Amara had a bit of fear. Like, it does talk about how Amara was a little bit fearful still. So it was like they were feeding off the fear over the love, over like the drive, over the horniness, let's be real. Like, they were feeding off every single kind of emotion that they could, and they wanted to keep taking and taking and taking. So I also do wonder, though, is if Salvatore could feel the need to feed as well in that moment, in his little cuck state. Like, I feel like that was just the best way to describe it. But I wonder if he could feel the kind of need to feed on what was going on between them as well.
Isn't
Because
there
if he's that
mention of
close to
it?
proximity,
There's
they
mention.
might
I
have
think
been, and they might have.
I think in the next chapter 24, there was mention, because it was written in Salvatore's perspective, where he said, where he starts talking about how he's feeding off of all the people that he's trying to free, as it were.
Yeah.
That he said
Yeah.
that there was,
So surely he would have.
there was the need, free. There was the feeling of feeding off of their passion. Because obviously he's just a bit of a weirdo standing in the corner.
Their fear and horror.
It's just there.
I think specifically the shadows want to feed off of Salvatore's rage,
His
at
rage.
watching, rather than feeding off of the intimate passion between the other two. I think.
I have
And
one
then
Anyways,
question.
go to Tam.
after all that,
Yes.
Sam?
Didn't Lazarus tell Amara that he was doing the Shadow Lord trials? Or
yeah,
You mean
mentioned that
like
she was
six or
like
7 chapters ago?
yeah.
Yeah.
So why has she only now
Yes.
told Lazarus that her dad was a Shadow Lord? Like surely if your boyfriend or your man was saying, I'm gonna do this thing to try and free us, and the only way we can do it is for me to become like this thing. Surely at that point you'd go, well, my dad was one, and it's not great. So
That's a good point.
why now?
I think when Lazarus tells Amara he's already in the Shadow Lord trials. I don't think it's I'm going to do this. Oh, but baby, they're bad. Please don't. I think he's already in it.
Yeah, there's no
There is
going back.
no going back. And I think Amara probably just was like, well, I can't change the situation. He's probably just going to die through it. So
Fair.
Because Lazarus was a good guy. He's not
I
going
don't
to
know if
make
that's
it
an
through.
actual
Uh-huh.
answer. I think it's the only rationalization I could come up with. But I mean, still,
And
she could
then-
have in the healing chamber when he told her. She could have been like, "Oh, my daddy did that. That ain't no good, bro."
He's gonna be the big
That ain't
bad.
good shit.
No bueno. Anyways, Tam.
And then we get to finally, what is it? Yeah, Amara and Lazarus are going to go find the Noctyss flower finally, while good old Sal is going to free the captives.
Feed,
know,
free. I mean,
Feed
The
off,
same thing,
feed
right?
off. You know, close
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
You know.
for him, yeah.
So
He never said
he
how he would free
finally.
them.
That's true.
Isn't there? There's a line
That's
in
true.
there's a line in the bit where it's like,
Yeah.
"Did you free those people?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "Yeah, I did." But he
Yeah.
didn't ask how.
You betcha.
Yep.
Hey, you could
freed
have
them.
asked for more clarification. If you were gonna get upset at me, you could have asked for more clarification. You know.
Wait, you didn't tell me how to free them.
And
I
then,
just did it.
yeah, did it my own way, bro. Can't get at me. And then what is it? So Mara and Lazarus go on their little merry way into pretty much Severen sex dungeon, pretty much. Which again, best way to describe it, the red room, like we were talking about the other time, it literally just is that. Because it literally talks about how there are things to bring pain and pleasure all surrounding them. So it literally is a sex dungeon. There's no other way to describe it. I hope my roommates love hearing that at this time of morning as well. First thing they hear when they wake up is just sex dungeon.
We should all be so lucky.
But
Well, I mean,
And
if
then-
they feed off pain and desire, I mean, boom, there you go.
it's all right there. Because I mean, and then that's the thing. We have seen the whole thing of like how he was doing exactly that. He was bringing pain and pleasure at the same time, trying to
That's
do as
right.
much as he could to feed off emotions. So, but he needed his sex dungeon somehow. So
So there you go.
then,
Functional.
so then he realizes that he kind of has to use Amara to figure out the information of where the flower is, because the shadows are telling him that the only way that they're going to pretty much tell him where it is if he feeds off of her more, which
Yep.
is just, yeah, the idea is pretty much they're feeding off of each other. Now again, there's a lot of making out in this, let's just say, because again, the shadows need to feed one way or another, so they were making out. It talks a lot again about like the whole fear. It's like kind of a big mix of fear and desire and need. And then finally, they tell him where the flower is. They go get the flower. but also, this was the steps that I wrote, pretty much. No, touch the flower. Give Amara flower. A brew will be enough to spill on Severen to neutralize him. Because pretty much the shadows have pretty much straight up told him, you cannot touch anything to do with the flower. Amara, since she is not a Shadow Lord, she can do whatever the heck she wants. You really only need a couple petals from and a brew made from a couple of those petals to neutralize him. You don't need much. And then to pretty much summarize the end of this whole kind of section of it all, he then finds Mariana's Tome of Shadows, aka her book, which is a very big thing. And she's like speaking to him through this book, and she's like telling him, give me back to Salvatore, take me to my son. And the biggest thing is, he's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I know, right?
So he's very, and because he talks kind of about how, if he doesn't get his mother, Salvatore can't get his, pretty much, in a way. It's very much the whole, this is Lazarus's part of revenge that he wants.
Well, it's the first time he's ever stuck up for himself.
No, exactly.
When I read the whole, he took my mother, so he'll never have his, I was like, hell yeah, bro, get you some.
Finally!
You know what? I respect it. You know what? You know what? You can have that one. We respect it. After everything, we respect it.
Damn right.
And then pretty much the chapter ends with Lazarus pretty much hoping and praying that Salvatore has done his part. That's pretty much the summary, just in case this AirPod dies and I have to figure out things again. But yeah, what do we think about him fucking finally sticking up for himself for the first time ever, pretty much?
I love it. It was delicious. Delicious.
It's like the Ascension's finally given him a backbone.
Yeah.
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 I mean, yeah. Hell yes, Laz. You get you some, man.
Hell yeah, brother.
I like the way you
It's
described
gonna be great
it.
when Salvatore's all mad about it, though. Go ahead, Sam.
I said I like how you described it. Be like, no, touchy flower.
No, touch the flower. Yeah.
Give to Amara.
Yeah.
Lazarus, no,
touch flower. Best way to describe it is just no. No, can't do that. Nuh-uh.
We do get kind of a callback back to the prologue, because I think if you read the prologue closely, when Severen is torturing Gareth and entombing Gareth in his tome, there is some line about Gareth's daughter, and then Severen goes out to the city of Ugrit and sees Salvatore and Lazarus, and Amara comes in, and Amara is the daughter. And I think you learn in the prologue, obviously it's the prologue, so you're not paying attention, but I do think that you can connect that Gareth is Amara's father from the prologue.
Yes.
Which is pretty crazy.
I want to ask a question about Mariana. How is she can talk out of the tome? Because I thought the whole point of locking them into their tome would be that they have no way of escaping. But yeah,
it's more
she's
dramatic.
Yeah, but it's only her. It's not like.
No, I know. That's why I'm with you. I don't get it either.
Salvatore can hear her, and Lazarus can hear her. Then
maybe
does
because
that mean
they're
Mara can potentially hear her dad, or is it because they could hear it before they turned into Shadow Lords? So, or is it
right?
Because,
or is it
because she's a woman and let her roar?
Well, I was
yeah.
We were saying it last week about
okay, Katy Perry.
We were saying it last week about the difference between Shadow Lords and Shadow Mistresses, and whether I always think that the woman version is more deadly than
that
the
is
male.
confirmed, by the way.
Yes.
Is it because she is more powerful that she can do that?
Notice how she was in Severen's room under his bed too. Right? He kept her
And
close.
if you're gonna hide her somewhere, I wouldn't put it under the bed. That's the first place I'm gonna look.
Seriously.
Don't put it under your bed.
He just
The
cuddles
first
it at night, guys.
first
It's his little
place is
teddy bear
under
at
your bed
nighttime.
or in your sock drawer. And if it's not in either of those, then
But that
So
goes to his hubris.
when I
you know,
was
he didn't.
when I was a beta reader, some of the feedback that I gave Sarah, I was pretty raw with my feedback that I gave her, and I told her that the magic system didn't make a lot of sense when it came to the Shadow Lords or Mistresses of Shadows being able to communicate from inside of their tomes.
How dare you?
And Sarah was like, but it does make sense. And she called me and she told me everything. So essentially, you're trapping their soul and their essence, and their soul and their essence can communicate outside of the tome, but it's different depending upon who they're communicating with. So if they are communicating with like their offspring, so Mariana to Salvatore, for example, the communication can go further because there is an inherent connection, right? But like Mariana to Lazarus, the book would literally have to be in Lazarus's hands for him to have the connection with her soul.
He was holding her.
He was holding it.
Then when we read chapter 24 and you watch how a Shadow Lord is trapped in the tome, it's all of the blackness comes out of them and goes into the book. And so
Like
their
those-
soul is like half shadow, and the shadows can just communicate no matter what. So it's sort of a little bit of that being mixed together. If I understood
sense to
Sarah
me.
correctly.
she just seems too insistent on like, give me to my son, give me to my son.
Because she knows he'll free her. Too bad though.
Yeah. And that
I
could
think
be a very
somewhere-
bad thing.
I don't remember what chapter it is, but it is
yeah.
literally described as like shadow hell. And so I think every imprisoned lord and mistress wants to get out.
Yeah, that's actually in my chapter because I remember reading that one. There's the fact that they're in shadow hell.
While Lazarus and Amara were doing all of that, Salvatore was also pretty damn busy before the two can link up to go at Severen.
Now we actually spoke about pretty much half of what I wrote down, I think, but so sorry for if I repeat anything. Well, this is where we start off with Salvatore being very, very jealous and talking about Amara and Lazarus kissing me. Yeah, but we already spoke about that, so I'm not going to say much more about it. But I think in this chapter, I have so many things I want to read aloud from the book because there were so many very well written stuff. And actually, the first part is that Salvatore is saying that. Now I have to make sense of my notes here. Yeah, he goes to free the prisoners, you know. But of course, that's not what he does. So when he feeds them, he's saying, their screams are like music, and the fire inside is fed by the begging for mercy. And now we get to see this very, very dark side of Salvatore. And
That's
then
your boy.
when he, yeah, and then he was talking a bit more about freeing them, and he said, I did not free them. I released myself because mercy was a lie. It hadn't ever saved anyone, least of all me.
That's right.
So now
man.
he's just being so pissed off about his life and everything.
That's right.
And this is also when Lazarus asked him, "Did you free them?" And he says, "Yes." And then he just insinuates, "Well, he didn't ask how." And we also hear that it's very clear that Salvatore is like, "Oh, now they don't suffer anymore," but we still know he doesn't really care if they suffer or not. And then they get to Severen's room, and he's all busy feeding his own shadow. So he's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing, you guys? There's two of you. Why is there two?" He thought there were gonna be none. So he was pretty surprised. And we actually get a little bit where they say it's like he's almost human because he's so surprised he can kind of just sheds all of this Shadow Lord stuff. I thought that
that
was
guy never saw it coming.
yeah. So maybe they are just gonna have to surprise all the bad Shadow Lords, and then they can, I don't know, kill them off. Yeah. And then we hear that how Salvatore feels about all of this, and he says, "I looked at Severen and saw what he was, a man devoured by the very thing that made him immortal, and I understood him." So we see much more of our very dark Salvatore. And he's just
Yeah.
standing there pondering, "Oh, this is what I understand this." And then Lazarus is like, "Severen," and Salvatore's like, "What? Oh my God! Oh, we are in the middle of something."
Mhm.
Good. Yeah. And then once again, Salvatore is like, "I want to know where my mother's tomb is. I want to free my mother. Where is she?" And Severen
Oh,
just tell him that, "Well, you can just go back to the pit of shadows. You can just do that one more time, then you'll find her because I put her there." And we just sit there like, well, I just sat there like, "Oh, you don't even know she's missing. You're not very good at protecting stuff, are you?" He seems not very bright at this moment. Yeah. And yeah, and then Lazarus revealed a lot about, "We know that you've been playing us. We know you're trying to put us on a specific path in our birth." And then he said, "You made us, you forced us, and now you will fall by what you created." And then we just hear Severin's like, "This is my power. I don't want to share it." Like a little kid with his toys, like, "This is mine. You can't have it." And we still have this feeling that he's convinced that nothing in this world can beat him. So
he was too sure of himself.
yeah. And then we get to see Salvatore being reminded of who he used to be, because he says, "Once I would have curled into myself and begged for it to end, but this is not what he chooses this time." Because now he's going to help Lazarus put Severen into the tomb.
Mhm.
And then we get to the attack. And this, I think this is a bit different to explain, so I didn't really wrote down too many details about this. I just wrote, "Is Severen is still so convinced that, well, nobody's gonna beat me, I'm gonna win, and then these two little shits are gonna go back where they belong." um, and
Nope.
I think somehow it kind of feels too easy, because it's like, okay, now I'm just taking the covering off the Noctyss flower, and then I'm gonna Lazarus is gonna throw the brew, and then, oh, this worked. But I was very happy that we weren't gonna be like, "Oh, this didn't work. Oh, I missed," or something. I thought it was very great. It wasn't written like that. And then Salvatore has to hold Severen while Lazarus is saying the incantation. And then we get a review of all these 5 steps they have to go through, and which is basically what they're doing while we're hearing about the steps. So, and then he promises that he'll return one day and reclaim what is his. But actually, before that, this is when he curses them both. And then he says, Lazarus will be cursed with emptiness, and he won't be able to feel anything. So he will have a family and he'll have love, but it won't really mean anything to him. And this is where I really found myself hoping that the true love part also is going to hold true here. And then Severen will curse Salvatore with emptiness of the heart, and he will never ever feel love. And this is exactly what they just paid the price they paid when they ascended. I think he just took
Yeah,
it
I'm like,
much
why
further.
why is he cursing him with that when that was what they were gonna get anyway?
Yeah, but his curse is, as I understand it, it's impossible to remove it. There's no way.
I see. Yep.
Yeah,
There's
and then
always a
we have
way.
yeah, I believe there's always a way. And then Lazarus and Salvatore. I hope to never see you again, not in this life, not ever. And Salvatore threatens Lazarus and his happiness and his children. He's like, okay, great, this is gonna end bad, and he just leaves. I think that was all, and it was pretty eventful, I think. So I have two questions for this. Why do you think the Whispers haven't told Salvatore where Mariana's tome is? Is it because he needs to ask specifically and then, of course, pay a price for answers? Or do they have another agenda? Or not agenda, if you don't believe that?
Hmm.
Because they could just tell him and he'd be like, okay, I'm going to go find Amara.
I think they can feed off him being upset about not being able to find it, and being, they can feed off that. And why would they want to help him? I mean, Lazarus already screwed it up for him, so
I still think there's an ulterior motive. I think why why is she I know obviously Severen's put her in there, but there's got to be something more to her. It can't just be that she was another one that he was trying to cull. There's got to be a reason why her. I reckon she's one of the big bads.
yeah, why was she under his bed? Something's going on there.
Yes.
Well, why is he precious about her? If he's killed all of these other Shadow Lords, why that one? I know that there was mention that I'm pretty sure Severen says somewhere that she chose weakness. She could have had me
Yeah.
because
Yeah, it's when she chooses Lord Lorien.
yeah, that she chooses Salvatore's dad over Severen. That I know maybe it is a bit more of a sort of, well, fuck you for doing that. I'm gonna keep you forever and you can't ever, escape. But I also think that there's got to be something more to her than that. I think there's a lot of little things that
Yeah,
are posted throughout the books that,
he was in
they're
love
hidden
with
there
her and
for a reason.
obsessed with her. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, it's connected with my other question because that was actually, what do you guys think of Mariana? And is he as bad as Severen says, or is this something he's saying because he's trying to hit Salvatore?
I think she's worse.
Me too, definitely.
I
I
have a
think she's worse
feeling
than
too.
what she's. Well, because I had the question last week that I'd written down saying when Salvatore mentioned his mum to Severen, does that derail Severen's plans? Because obviously he had things planned out from like day dot, but then had no idea that Lazarus was not Lazarus, that Salvatore was Marianne's son. So, like, surely if you're going through all the effort to put these people together, you'd know who their lineage is.
Louise,
Yeah.
I know that Salvatore has asked Mariana where her tome is, and obviously Mariana is like, well, I don't freaking know. I'm in this general room, but I don't know where he sat me down specifically. But I'm trying to remember back. Does Salvatore actually ever ask the shadows directly where his mother's tome is? I know he asks
No.
Severen, but does he ever ask the shadows?
No, he never asked the shadows.
I don't think the shadows are going to give you any information without being asked or prompted directly. I think they're a little bit like ChatGPT.
Nice.
They don't do anything unless somebody asks them to do something. Yeah.
Or pays for it.
And maybe they wouldn't even do it then because, why would they do something nice or good for him?
Mhm.
They're not.
And then
Maybe
even
not
if
good.
Salvatore did ask, I have to wonder, do the shadows know any more than what Mariana knows? Like, they
Oh,
know that the tome is in his, I don't know, what do we call that? Sex dungeon palace.
Yeah.
But they don't necessarily know where inside of that room. So would that be any more helpful than what Mariana has already told him?
I have one question that I wanted to ask that out of all the payment methods, so fear, desire,
Venmo.
Amex, whatever. What do you think is the strongest currency? Like, do you think it's fear that's going to be
probably
the
pain.
strongest?
Oh, fear. Maybe fear.
I think
Because
it
you've got
definitely is not
fear,
lost.
desire. It was ecstasy. Is it ecstasy?
No, desire is that. Pain. Isn't pain one?
Yeah, it's not
Or
pain.
suffering?
Pain or something related to pain is what I think is the strongest currency. Because
I
these
think
are
so
bad.
too. That's why he tortures.
Yeah.
Severin is big on torture.
Well, because they say to him that the reason that the Dreadhold's been built is because it's basically his bank, his way of paying the shadows for
Yeah.
the stuff that he wants to be done. But I wonder if there's a higher currency in the shadows mind of which.
I would have to imagine, going with like the bank concept, I would have to imagine that like anguish, sadness, and despair are sort of like interest. It's the thing that always pays because everybody in there is always sad. So you can feed the shadows without actually doing anything. But
Yeah.
then I think that like panic or fear from like the trials or torture or whatever has to be number one.
See, I
Because
don't know.
why? What do you think it is?
Well, why would he have a sex dungeon? I think Desire's up there. I think Desire is probably the higher one. If
Well, it's only his desire. I mean, the people he's doing that to aren't showing desire. They're showing
Yes.
fair.
suffering, pain.
But for him, it's desire. So is he
It's
feeding himself
masochism.
then,
Yeah.
or is he feeding the shadows at that point? Because then it's a twofer. Like he's feeding his
Oh, it's a twofer, all right.
wants, and then obviously the shadows are getting the the change, as it were.
Yeah, he's doing it for himself too, but I mean, definitely, I don't think the biggest currency is desire because he's the only one who is desiring the pain and the control and the fear and it's just the only time I saw desire was when it was Lazarus and Amara and they had some desire towards each other. That's probably the first time the Dreadhold has had desire in a very long time.
But would you
guessing
say it's
that's-
desire? Because I reckon it's
I don't
desire.
think it's desire.
Off
I
of
think that
Lazarus
maybe
was
Severen
it,
has
but I don't think
lust.
Amara is.
Yeah, I think lust.
I think
No,
Severen has
Amara had
lust, and
desires for
his
Lazarus.
victims have fear.
Yeah.
They're scared
Fear.
of the act
Yeah.
that they're being forced to do. With
That's
Lazarus
right.
and Amara, I definitely think that it is passion over desire. Their passion for each other.
Yeah.
I think also that the shadows are sentient beings, like like you and I. They have like emotions to a certain extent. I
Do you think
think
then?
the reason I characterize them that way is you have to imagine that they become desensitized.
Do you think then that they would have their
And
own characteristics? So one person's shadow might want fear more. One person's shadow might want desire or lust more.
I think it's a thing of like adaptation. So I think what they want probably changes over time. And if they're getting sadness and despair all the time from the prisoners that are just locked up there without any hope for a future, and they're getting lust and whatever all the time from Severen's sex dungeon, then the random death and and torture from the trials have to feel like hitting like a gold mine
A
So it's almost
those
like
few
dopamine.
times that it happens.
it's almost like having porridge every day and then somebody going, "Here, have a steak."
Yeah.
Yeah, those
I'd
two
have
things
thought of
are
it.
equatable.
This is my very crude and probably very, very, very inappropriate correlation. But Monsters Inc., where they had the fear and then they had the laughter,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
fear
Yeah.
was like this much, but yet the laughter was like way this much.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
know it's very inappropriate to talk about Monsters Inc. on this forum, but I think that kind of like what you were saying, that there's that porridge that we get every day, but that, hey, let's do something a little bit different, and let's make the big deposit, so to speak.
Mhm. Bang for your buck. Literally.
Deposit.
All the euphemisms,
Yeah.
I love it.
After Neo and Agent Smith's fight comes to, after Lazarus and Salvatore entomb Severen, our story comes to a pause as our main characters vow eternal hatred for one another before separating for good. And in our next episode, our main characters are going to leave the Dreadhold separately, only to reunite 50 years later so that they can try to save the city of Ugarit, as we finish our story with chapters 25 through 29 of Rise of the Shadow Lords. But for now, the archives are closed. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you all next week.
Woo!
Bye.